Hello, and welcome to PoliticOly episode 17. It's June 28th, 2020, and I'm your host, Stuart Reed. We're coming up on Washington State's primary election, which wraps up on August 4th, so I've been focusing on getting as many interviews with local candidates as I can. I've got links in the description below of recent videos with Mary Ellen Biggerstaff, Rory Somerson, and then I've got an interview with Carolina Mejia coming up next week. If you've got a question for Carolina, you can comment below or email me at politicOly@gmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at OlyPolitic for show updates and Oli Stewart for my main. That's what I have on the screen right here. If you're interested in doing an interview, please let me know and we'll get it scheduled. I want to start the show by thanking the people on the streets, organizers, cop watchers, essential workers, everyone doing caregiving or parenting work. Really, thank you to everyone out there doing the best that you can to be anti-fascist in your own way. There are so many ways to be anti-fascist, but we stand united in solidarity as the working class, the poor, the imprisoned, the deported, the disabled, and all others fighting together against the ruling class. Use social media to post your Antifa pride with the hashtag #EverydayAntiFascist, which was started by PopMobPDX, short for Popular Mobilization Portland. And you can take a look at my Twitter page for my post on that. Let's see, let me get this switched over and stay tuned through some news briefs, upcoming events, and a couple educational links I want to share. And then I've got the premiere of my interview with Jonny Meade for Washington State House of Representatives, Legislative District 22, Position 1. Thurston County has moved into Phase 3 of our COVID-19 recovery plan, and the mask-wearing mandate has been expanded statewide by Governor Jay Inslee. In response, the Lewis County Sheriff Rob Snaza called mask wearers sheep, and Thurston County Sheriff John Snaza announced that he won't be enforcing the mandate or requiring his deputies to wear masks while interacting with the public. Meanwhile, the Thurston County Sheriff's employees are getting a 5% hazard pay bonus, while to my knowledge, none of the essential workers in the county are yet getting hazard pay. To be clear, I do not want cops out there criminalizing mask compliance. However, there is clearly a leadership failure where many right-wing people follow the guidance of these elected officials and use it to fuel their anti-science conspiracies, which results in people dying. If you have an opinion on this, please contact both the county commission and your other elected officials. Keep in mind, there are 2 county commission races on the ballot for the August 4th primary, but you only get to vote for the one in the district you live in. In the general election in November, you'll be able to vote in both races if you live anywhere in the county. One final note is that one of the positions is a race between incumbent Gary Edwards, who is a far-right former sheriff, and Michael Stedman, a conservative Democrat with a military background who owns the building leased to private sector arms, which has been a meeting place for local violent right-wing militias. There are several excellent candidates in the other race, District 1, but Thurston County, we have to run anti-fascist candidates in every single political race. We can't leave it up to the capitalist Democrats and Republicans to pick the candidates like we did this time in the Gary Edwards race. Speaking of hazard pay, let me quote from Pay Up Seattle. Quote, "Hazard pay for gig workers is now the law in Seattle, beginning Friday, June 26th at 8:30 and continuing until the end of the official coronavirus state of emergency. You should be receiving an extra $250 in hazard pay, also called premium pay, for each delivery of food or groceries you make inside the city limits of Seattle. Gig workers in Seattle have won a huge breakthrough here. This is the first local law to require hazard pay anywhere in the country, and it only happened because workers with the Pay Up campaign organized, spoke out, and kept pushing to make it happen. And while it's starting in Seattle, it shouldn't end there. We need more laws like this across the country. End quote. And I fully agree with that sentiment. For more discussion on hazard pay, tune in to the interview with Jonny Meade later in the show. For more on the militias, let's take a look at a YouTube video called "Who Are the Men with Guns?" by a YouTuber named Concerned Citizens.
Who are the men with guns intimidating protesters in Olympia, Washington? On Thursday, an Olympian gun store, Private Sector Arms, issued a call for armed citizenry to gather at their store location. This call was in response to rumors being spread online about imaginary buses full of anti-fascist protesters. Among those who answered the call were members of the 3%er militia, Proud Boys, and a new right-wing group named American Wolf. On the following evening, about 30 armed people began assembling in a shopping complex on the west side of Olympia. They brandished semi-automatic rifles and pistols and wore matching yellow shirts with the words Peacekeeper. This gathering was organized by the newly formed far-right group American Wolf, led by Peter Diaz. The group spent the evening pursuing and antagonizing a protest that was organized against police brutality. Diaz claims the group is supportive of social justice and supports the Black Lives Matter movement, but American Wolf is a far-right group, attempting to contain the protest and gain legitimacy for their own far-right political agenda. The group spent the evening pursuing and antagonizing a protest that was organized against police brutality. At one point, one member of American Wolf seems to do a Nazi salute. Diaz began organizing locally during the recent wave of right-wing protests against COVID-19 quarantine measures, which prioritize business interests over public health. Diaz is socially and ideologically aligned with the right libertarian militia movement, as also evidenced by his support for far-right political candidates Lauren Culp and Joseph Brumbles, both affiliated with right-wing militia groups, such as the Washington 3%ers, alt-right figures such as Joey Gibson and Patriot Prayer, and Christian fundamentalist and accused domestic terrorist Matt Shea. Shea has direct ties to the Christian supremacist white power movement of the Northwest, including hate preacher Warren Mark Campbell, the paramilitary fascist group Team Rugged, and the Christian separatist Redoubt movement. Shea is also infamous for his 2018 manifesto, Biblical Basis for War, which outlines his desire for a Christian theocracy where abortions, same-sex marriage, and dissent are outlawed. It goes so far as to call the murder of those who fail to obey this biblical law. Spokane County Sheriff Ozzie Knezevic referred to this document as a how-to manual consistent with the ideology and operating philosophy of the Christian Identity Aryan Nations movement and the Redoubt movement of the 1990s. He continues, the goal of these groups has always been to create a white homeland consisting of Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Oregon, and Washington. The ideas presented in the document are how these groups intend to seize control by force should there be a governmental collapse or civil war. Culp and Brumbles both publicly defend and support Matt Shea, and presumably his authoritarian and racist agenda. And this is what Peter Diaz and American Wolf support, regardless of how they try to polish their public image. There is a huge overlap between far-right activism, libertarian militias, extremist politicians, and the white power movement in the Northwest. For this reason, we must stay vigilant and acknowledge the presence of armed right-wing groups as what they are, a threat to the safety of our community.
So thank you to Concerned Citizens for that video, and you can find the link to the description so you can subscribe to that channel as well. Moving on, one more quick note about Peter Diaz is a post on Olympia protest group, and I will just quote from this. Quote, "The video shows a line of American Wolf guys with Peter in white pants behind them. As protesters are yelling at the AW guys, Peter begins shining a bright light into their eyes. In response, the protesters open umbrellas to block the light. Then Peter Diaz grabs someone's umbrella and shoves into them, assaulting the person on camera. He then immediately runs out of the crowd as the AW guys begin shooting the protesters with paint guns. I believe it is around the 5:40 mark in the video. Additionally, he admits to David Ross on camera that he ripped someone's sign down." And I'm not going to watch that on the show here, but just a note. And there have been other instances where the American Wolf guys have been violently intimidating and harassing folks. So don't be fooled by the word peacekeeper on their shirt. It is a lie. Hang on. All right, so next I'd like to talk about the Affirmative Action Initiative 1776 that needs your signature by July 2nd if you're a Washingtonian. This is a video by Progressive Washington featuring Emmanuel Mamo, the statewide outreach coordinator of I-1776, and Jesse Wineberry, former Washington state representative, who we'll listen to for a few minutes here.
Representative Weinberg.
Well, thank you. The reason I yielded to Emmanuel is because it's his generation that we're working for. Our goal is to keep open, or rather to reopen the doors of opportunity through I-1776 in 4 areas. Number one, education. As Emmanuel pointed out, in 1998, Washington State passed an initiative called Initiative 200, I-200. And when you Google it, you will see that it killed affirmative action, diversity, equity, inclusion in 3 areas. In education, that's from K through 12, as well as higher education, in employment, and in public contracting. As a matter of fact, we have gotten reports from the state of Washington that have done studies on the impacts of I-200 on our entire state, and it showed that women and people of color have lost close to $3.8 billion in economic job generating opportunities. When you talk about systemic sexism and racism, what can be more systemic than a law being passed in a state that bans affirmative action, that helps women and people of color and the disabled and veterans and members of the LGBT community get jobs, get an education, and get an opportunity, if they have a business, to do business with the state? That's what has happened in Washington State. And the unfortunate thing about it is that we're one of only a few states that has done this. 47 out of 50 states still have equity, diversity, inclusion, affirmative action opportunity so that all people can contribute to our economy. Washington State fell into what I call politricks. There's politics, I think we're all familiar with that, but a lot of people have never heard of politricks. But when you look at how I-200 was passed, you can't describe it as anything else. Here it is. I-200 used the image, the voice, and the words of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King to convince people to pass I-200. They called it the Civil Rights Act of Washington, and they had Dr. King in their commercials, at least the voice of Dr. King, saying we cannot judge people based on the color of their skin, but the content of their character. And so everybody thought that that initiative was something progressive, that it was something that was going to create opportunity for people who were being left behind, and they voted for it. Imagine the shock of waking up in 1998, the day after the election, and the news is telling you, Washington, you're one of only a few states in America that has killed affirmative action for all women and all people of color. So fast forward to last year, I want to thank people in your audience, and particularly the Washington Progressive Party, for getting behind and supporting I-1000. We ended up getting more signatures for I-1000 to go on the ballot than any other signature to the legislature in Washington state history. Nearly 400,000 people signed their names on the line to bring equality and justice back to Washington state. The legislature then voted overwhelmingly to put it into law. But then, as the Constitution allows, citizens got together, got signatures themselves to put it on the ballot. And when it went to the ballot, we ended up less than 1% away from bringing equality, justice, and opportunity back to Washington state. So all of the organizations who were behind I-1000 got together right after that election and decided that we would not quit. There's an old saying that in life, it's not how you start that makes a difference, it's how you finish. And so we intend on finishing strong and finishing with a win. And all we ask people to do is go to yes on I-1776, that's the new number for the initiative, 1776, and either print a petition out and get signatures, or print a petition out, sign it, send it back in, or we give you another choice that you've never had before, and that is to go on yes on 1776 and sign your name online for this initiative. And so I thank you for having us here, and I look forward to the discussion.
And I will link to both this interview, this interview, and the webpage for 1776 in the description below, so you can go sign that as well. And just note, as he said, the importance that we are moving forward with online signatures of petitions to the legislature initiatives in Washington state. This is huge. And it's a little late this year. Like Jesse said there, we don't have much time. It took time to set this system up and respond to the COVID-19 crisis and what it meant for signature collecting, and how we could achieve our constitutional right to initiative. And that has been set up now, but we don't have a ton of time. As he said, July 2nd is the deadline for that. So get that signed. And keep in mind, though, because initiatives are one of my just absolute favorite methods of civic engagement in Washington state. And with the potential to collect online signatures, we could put some measures on the ballot that have never had access before, because the old paradigm is you need at least $100,000, if not much more, to pay for enough people to even process, much less go out and collect enough signatures to get an initiative on the ballot. If we can now get online signatures, that will be much less expensive, and groups and individuals that have significant reach online can push an initiative over the finish line whereas in the past it was much more difficult to do that. So keep an eye on that initiative process in Washington for next year, and be ready to get involved in some online initiative signature gathering campaigns, assuming they allow us to continue doing that moving forward. And if they don't, we need to push for that, because it's a democratizing tool that we get to use this time and should get to use every time. Okay, so moving along, the big news this week was the elections in New York and Kentucky, including AOC, Mondaire Jones, and Jamal Bowman, who has a brief message about how he won, which contains some hope for the future and advice for what we can do next.
Hello, everyone. Peace and love. Hope your Saturday so far is going well. Just wanted to take a moment to give a huge shout out to the Sunrise Movement. So our campaign was able to make over 1 million phone calls, which is crazy, unprecedented. Don't think that's ever been done in any other campaign before. And our Sunrise volunteers alone made 850,000 phone calls in this district to registered Democrats, to persuade them and engage them to vote in our campaign for me on election night. That's incredible. Sunrise Movement, you are exactly that. You are a movement. You have changed the game in our political arena. You will change this country and change the world. Keep pushing, keep striving. Thank you so much. I can't wait to help and support y'all in growing your movement exponentially. Thank you so much, Sunrise. Peace and love. Have a great day.
Woo! That is awesome. Thank you to everyone who participated in that, and thank you to the Sunrise Movement for organizing, and let's keep it going. So also the race in Kentucky is maybe even bigger news, and that one hasn't been called yet. It was not likely to be called until the 30th. Because the voting process in Kentucky just takes some more time to process. And so we don't know yet, but Charles Booker has pulled ahead of Amy McGrath, who is the self-styled Trump Democrat that the capitalist Democrats want to use as an example of how, if we want to beat the Republicans, we have to become more capitalist and more conservative. And they put $30-40 million, something like that, into the Amy McGrath race, and Charles Booker, with maybe just a couple of million, has come up and just surprised the nation and Kentucky. And so that one hasn't been called yet. It is still up in the air. It's only 14-point-something% reporting, I think, at last I saw. So it's early to call, but win or lose, Charles Booker has shocked the country. And let's just watch his ad from like a week ago, because it's amazing. And if he is able to pull it off, we will be hooting and hollering for him all across the country. So go subscribe to his channel and his social media to stay tuned for updates.
He never saw us coming. He never saw those medical bills pile up. He never asked what we needed. He spent trillions of dollars bailing out his friends while we lined up for unemployment. He let the government abandon America, abandon Kentucky. I explained to you how these types of laws would kill people. My life matters too, Speaker.
You are out of order. Your 3 minutes are up.
My life matters too. Black lives matter. He never saw us coming. I grew up in 40203, the poorest zip code in the state. I've been invisible to people like Mitch McConnell my entire life. From the hood to the holler, we've all felt invisible and alone. But finally, the power of the people is beginning to show. We've seen who keeps society running. It's the black janitors, the brown cashiers, the white folks stocking the shelves. The essential people are rising up. I've seen young people become preachers, cooks, medics. I've seen folks from the mountains. Everybody wrote off, fighting to say, my life matters. Nah, I don't feel alone anymore. I've seen America's future on the streets of Kentucky, a future where survival isn't so complex. My daughters can trust the water from their faucet. Brianna's door won't get kicked in, and the air isn't so toxic it could choke me out. We don't need to be so suspicious of our neighbors. We can build a world where you don't look over your shoulder when you walk down the street. You look forward. If people need health care, the government can provide health care for all. We know the government can help people get meaningful work, rebuilding America.
From the hood to the highway! From the hood to the highway!
Another political race that is heating up.
Yesterday, the hashtag Booker beats Mitch was trending.
I have a feeling he can shock the world.
They got predictions, but you've got to vote.
We don't need people in Washington telling us who should be our candidates in Kentucky.
We need to elect our brothers, our sisters, our fellow good troublemakers. Only a movement can beat Mitch.
Wall Street! Wall Street! Wall Street!
Suddenly, he's getting nervous. Could there really be a movement in Kentucky which brings together blacks, whites, and Latinos, teachers, miners, and farmers, Republicans, Democrats, and independents standing up for working people, fighting for change?
People, united!
Look me in the eyes, Mitch.
Have you seen any signs that suggests to you that Mitch McConnell is afraid of running against you?
Can you see us now?
Wow. Right? If you didn't feel something watching that, I don't know what to tell you. So go donate to Charles Booker right now. And I will link to the ad that I showed as well as his webpage below. Back to Thurston County. There's a petition you can sign to change the name of Thurston County. Samuel Thurston was a segregationist colonizer. Just look him up. There is awful quotes with words that I'm not going to read on the air here. Worse than quotes, he enabled genocide of the indigenous people who lived in this area. Let's change the name. I've signed the petition, and I encourage you to follow the link below, either after the show or just go ahead and hit pause, sign it now, and come back. Thank you. The goal was 500, but we just hit 500, and now the goal's 1,000, so let's keep that rolling. This weekend, there was a live stream benefit concert for Justice for Yvonne McDonald. You can find some of the videos on their Facebook page here, which I will link. And there's more coming up tonight from 5 to 9 p.m. So you want to tune in at the link below and donate as well. And that looks like some fantastic performances there. So take a look at that. And I'll provide an update on the Justice for Yvonne McDonald legal case as I hear more about next steps for that in coming episodes. This is a statement from Olympia educators and allies. You can sign it if you're in Olympia too. It's titled Educator and Staff Letter to the Olympia School District Regarding Black Lives Matter. Quote, "We, the undersigned educators in the Olympia School District, along with our allies, in solidarity with the recent uprisings against racial injustice in the United States and the work and legacy of numerous Black, Indigenous, people of color-led movements, want to call and point to a number of anti-racist actions we call on the Olympia School District to engage in immediately." End quote. And it goes on to describe some of the systemic racism here in our local schools and what we can do about it. It mentions that previous budget reduction proposals for OSD included not funding the school resource officers in Olympia, and they don't see any reason to retract that proposal as it has been reintroduced. So, as I mentioned in the past episode, please contact your Olympia School Board representatives or your local school board representatives wherever you live, as well as your superintendents and state level representatives and elected officials with regard to the education system. And this letter is, in my view, a great start. So take a look at what they are calling for here and go ahead and add your name. And there's also more educational resources as well. So take a look at this. And thank you to the Olympia School District educators who put this letter together. Last week, I said I'd have more discussion on police abolition and the 8 to Abolition campaign, but I would need a whole nother episode just for that, so I will be discussing the issue more going forward, but for now, I'd like to link you to an excellent podcast on the subject from Revolutionary Left Radio, featuring Josh Briand from Millennials Are Killing Capitalism, another podcast you should follow, who you can find on Twitter at Queer Socialism and also Twitter user at Radical Theory. That's the other person in the podcast that I had up before. I also encourage you to go read through 8toabolition.com on your own, and we will continue that discussion going forward. In today's PoliticOly interview, we've got Jonny Meade, who is a socialist running for Washington State House of Representatives, Legislative District 22, Position 1. That's the seat held by incumbent Lori Dolan, who is a conservative Democrat that ran on strong union ties, but since she won, I personally haven't seen her doing anything progressive in our community. She was the pre-selected candidate of the Democrat Party Insiders in 2016, defeating Bernie delegate Dr. Karen Johnson in the primary. That year, it was a Republican who got second place in the primary, who Dolan beat easily in the general election. In 2018, there wasn't much competition, and C. Davis was her general election challenger. I have heard allegations of sexual harassment by C. Davis, so while legally that's just an unsubstantiated rumor, I believe victims, and so we need to make sure C. Davis loses every election he attempts. Without further ado, let's get into the interview. After the show, you'll be able to find both the full episode and the interview segment for easier sharing.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to PoliticOly. I'm here with Jonny Meade, who is running for Legislative District 22, Position 1 in Washington State. It is June 25th, 2020, when we're recording this. So if you just want to say hi to the audience and introduce yourself and talk about the office that you're running for and why.
So hi, I'm Jonny, and I'm running for your Washington State representative. I'm running because I feel like the working class doesn't really have a voice in the state legislature. And I want to, be that voice. I've sat on the sidelines for long enough. I was a Bernie Sanders 2016 Thurston County delegate, and I was a Bernie 2020 volunteer organizer, independently here in town, and ran some events organizing for Sanders 2020. And I really just I want to provide a different perspective moving in. We're in a crisis moment with COVID-19, and the state legislature is just not stepping up to the task that of the scale that's needed moving forward. And so that's what our campaign is focused on, is providing a real material response to the COVID-19 crisis. And that's where we're moving forward from there.
Great. So I guess I will take a cue from that. And recently you had posted about the COVID-19 response, and you had mentioned hazard pay for essential workers. You want to talk about what your what your policy on that would be?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the state has acknowledged that we are in a crisis moment, and that the elevated risk requires that we all wear masks, because the COVID-19 it's an existential risk to the working class. And so um if we can acknowledge that folks need to be wearing a mask in order to be going out and working and providing services to folks, grocery services, healthcare workers across the board, restaurant services, then we can realize that those folks are getting an added risk onto their life. I mean, I mean, as a worker myself, as somebody who is an essential worker who's going out there every day, I am seeing that increased risk. And I think that the people of Washington State deserve protections. If we are going to force the economy open, then we can provide hazard pay to the people that are going to be directly impacted by those decisions.
Do you have a particular proposal for what the hazard pay would be, or you're not sure yet on that? And if so, then sort of how would you determine that? Or
it needs to happen now rather than when, if I went into office, it's going to be in January, whereas the legislatures right now need to be going into a special session and pushing for increased benefits to workers at the moment right now. I mean, we are Thurston County just moved into phase 3, while we have 5 new cases a day, and the country itself is at the same rate that we had at the very beginning of the crisis. So we haven't flattened any curve. I mean, we've come, exactly where we were to begin with.
We plateaued at the top of the curve, which is not what they meant by flatten the curve.
Along. And, everybody kind of, while a lot of our politicians kind of signal, like, we understand what's going on with this crisis, we're not going to put the necessary resources forward to protect workers, to protect people, to protect renters, and people that are making their home payments. And we're just not protecting people across the board, because we're kind of hedging our bets between the COVID denialists and people that want to pay attention to the scientists. We're saying, well, we can kind of half open, but we can open the eviction courts, right? We can open those, but so it's I don't think that our legislature has properly responded in the moment. And moving forward, I think that's the focus of my campaign, and that should be the focus of our current legislators in the legislature moving forward.
Do you know what I haven't heard about on the discussion of a special session? Do you know if that is a thing?
There has been
that
no
others are
discussion of a
talking
special
about,
session.
or is that just kind of?
No, it has not been discussed. As far as to my furthest knowledge, if anybody can chime in the comments and tell me of somebody who has stepped forward and put that, I would love to hear about it. But right now, our legislators are not stepping up to the task. I mean, we are in a crisis, and essentially people are on vacation, and it's just absurd. So that sense of urgency is something I want to bring to the table in the legislature moving forward. And, that's why I hope to have the opportunity to represent LD22.
Yeah, thank you for running, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And so speaking of sort of urgent issues and activism and whatnot, what so far has been your take on and your participation in, or and then also policy that you take from the Black Lives Matter movement?
Yeah, I am so excited to see this moment happen. It's such an urgent need, and I've been I've been out there listening, not trying to make this a campaign moment or trying to center myself in any way, but really just take the opportunity to listen to folks about what policy proposals we can put forward. I would see my role as one who can put political action to the voices of people in the movement, to put policy forward, where I don't want to try to center myself in that. And so it's really been about listening to me. I will be on Saturday. We have an action here. This might air after that, right? This when you put this up.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did share one flyer for a action this Saturday on the previous show. So I'm not sure if this is that or not.
Yes. So I'll be out there, but I'm not trying to make myself the center of those or try to put my campaign, wedge my campaign into those. Really, I'm about trying to listen to people on the forefront of the movement. I mean, prison abolition is an interest that's dear to me, but I think that needs to be tied into. We really need to look into the historical economic structures that create these systems. And so for myself, it's all I can do is provide political solutions. And at the moment, I'm listening to what the movement is putting forward. So.
All right. Thanks for being out there. Let's see. We have a question from Facebook. Let's see. Made in Mischief comments or asks, I'm excited to hear what experiences led him to socialism and ideas he has for more community organizing.
Well, for socialism, I mean, for me, what led me to socialism is really just my experience of being a worker. I mean, I've done every kind of retail job imaginable. I'm just a working class father. I'm not coming to this with an extensive pedigree or saying like that my degree in such and such has led me to this point. What's led me to this point is being a working class father, has been somebody who's been interested in creating a better world for a long time. I really got my political footing in the anti-war movement in the early 2000s and the anti-globalization movement. And but time rolls on. I've been a dad and worked a lot of jobs, and I've gotten to a place where I can use can use the position that I'm in now to speak to the issues that I care about. And that's why I've chosen to run for office. I think that we have a unique opportunity in this cycle to elect multiple socialists on the ballot in this district. It's kind of amazing, actually. And I think that I uniquely represent the working class in a way that this district hasn't had in a moment. So,
let's see. I guess following up on that, what's your take on the race in this position strategically? Like, why? So this is Lori Dolan is the incumbent here in this position. And so let's see, there's Lori Dolan, there's J.D. Ingram in the Republicans, and Alan Acosta in the Libertarians, and that's it in your race, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so talk about what is your take on that? Is the strategy here, because it's the top two primary, right? So basically, and I mean, I'll let you. I'm kind of sort of taking away part of your answer here, right?
No.
But is the thinking here that you can use the time, the moment, and the movement to get into that second place in the primary, and then you're in the general, and it's all basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a really excellent shot in this primary to move on to the general, and then from that point we can really rally the troops and pull folks together and let people know that there's a chance to provide real material responses to the COVID-19 crisis to the people of Washington State, to provide a socialist response to those crises. And for me, it's political and it's personal. I live in this district. I want my daughter, who is a teenager going to school here in this district, to have every opportunity that she can have. And I feel like the being that it's the capital, it's a little underrepresented for the people that actually live here. Nothing, on the incumbent, but it feels like the people that actually like live and work in this district are not being represented. And so I want to make sure that our children across the state of Washington are having an equitable education, which in the COVID-19 crisis, we're really going to need to think long term about what that means. And part of that means getting the infrastructure together. So if part of our education is going to include internet-based education, no matter what, that's kind of factored into what the schools are thinking about right now, then we really need to make sure that people have those resources no matter what. So it's not incumbent on Comcast. We need to make sure that people have public broadband across the board. We have the resources to provide that to people so that all of our children can get an equitable education. And that's if I had to say what the key focus of our campaign is first and foremost that making sure our children are not being, because I mean we can't even imagine what the impact of this moment is having on. I mean I remember I was in high school when 9/11 happened, and that was a moment in itself. But to have everything kind of fall apart at this moment. Schools are out. When they go back to school, it depends on whether they have the resources to have internet or not, or to have a computer or not, or whether they can get a full, and not just a basic education, but like a full education that's constitutionally mandated by the state of Washington. And
hang on. I have a question coming from Twitter, and I just have to read it right now because, you'll see why. Okay. Here's the question from Andrew Saturn. Can you ask him about Washington's guarantee of K through 12 education and how he thinks the legislature can make that work under coronavirus, but in an equitable way? Is that not timely there? So
it is very timely. Well, thank you, Andrew.
But you basically just already just finished with that answer.
Yeah, well, that's the key to our campaign. That's what I'm focused on more first and foremost. And when you get into the legislature, of course, there's a limited docket that can go forward. As a socialist, I'm going to have limited. There will be a caucus that I will need to caucus with, and there will be communication that will need to happen. So my impetus is on providing resources directly to people to respond to the COVID-19 crisis, which the state recognizes is an emergency situation, necessary for folks to wear a face mask wherever we go. So we need to be providing the workers of our district with the resources for being, putting themselves in harm's way. We need to be fully funding education so that all of the children in our district are able to get a full education and not left behind because they don't have the digital resources to do so. And we need to be thinking outside the box as far as how we can provide funding for what we need to do here in Washington, because we have a regressive taxation system, and we put the impetus on workers and a regressive sales tax structure rather than trying to come up with long-term permanent funding solutions for the problems that we have as a state. And so that's what I want to do moving forward. I want to provide a voice that is not confined by the two-party structure, that's able to provide a voice for the working people of our district, and provide a voice for myself as a working father, somebody who lives here, who wants my daughter to have a better life. So that's why I'm running. I feel like certainly the last federal election cycle didn't quite go the way that I wanted as a Sanders volunteer. And the next step for me is trying to provide an independent voice outside of the two-party structure that can articulate these concerns of the working class, both in the state legislature and to the people at large.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach. And as a follow-up to that, are you a member of any political parties? Do you have the endorsement of any political parties? Are you, what sort of political organizations do you participate in?
I'm a member of the Puget Sound Socialist Party, I'm endorsed by the Puget Sound Socialist Party. The National Socialist Party has followed me on Twitter now, so I'm sure that the endorsement is coming soon. And we are kind of moving along with this moment where the Socialist Party and the Green Party have kind of merged together. Howie Hawkins just got the nomination of the Green Party. Is also the nominee of the Socialist Party. So we have this unity between the Socialist Party and the Green Party moving forward that I feel like at the local level could be very beneficial as well. For myself, the Puget Sound Socialist Party has most closely reflected my views, and so that's the party that I'm a member of at the moment.
Awesome. So do you want to talk a little bit about campaigning in this shutdown time? What are you doing to campaign? What can people do to help? They want to help out with your campaign, and if you want to plug your your webpage or anything like that.
I would love to do that. Well, it is a unique time. We can't do the typical door-to-door campaigning that is so crucial, that has been crucial to down ballot candidates across the country. People have been able to go door to door, and that has made all the difference for them, but we can't do that. And so really, we have to have a bit of a virtual campaign, and which is all good enough. Everything is kind of virtual in this moment, but really we need folks to sign up. We've got a Discord that you can sign up if you go to Jonny Forwa, that's FORWA.com. You can sign up on there. If you go to the Puget Sound Socialist Party, you can sign up to be a member of the Puget Sound Socialist Party as well. And we are working on different projects across the board. But if you visit our website, we have a Discord. We're working on several different organization efforts. We have a phone bank. And we'd really love to have as many people as possible sign up to have a truly socialist campaign for LD22. This is a unique moment that we can organize around these issues and have a voice outside of the two-party system. And I'm excited for each and every one of you to join. And we also have a meme creator. So if you would like to endorse our campaign, if you go to Jonny.com, or Jonny, that's my Biden moment. Go to Joe330. No, go to Jonny4wa.com, and we have an endorsement meme on there where you can post why you would like to support our campaign, and why this moment is the right one to choose socialism.
Melon Floydbert endorses Jonny Forwa.
Oh, I'm so happy. I have got one moment. You've got a large lad. This is Carl, and Carl, he half endorses Jonny Forwa. He might bite me because I picked him up from his nap, but
fair enough.
Okay, now he endorses. We'll give him treats, and he'll endorse later.
Excellent.
But yeah, so summing up, I'd really, if what I've been talking about is interesting to you here, if you were interested in the Sanders campaign, if you are in other socialist campaigns, this moment, it doesn't matter, if you consider yourself a socialist or not. This is a moment where you can make a difference in the material lives of the people in your community. And I promise to support my fellow working people, and I ask for your vote, and I ask for your support, and I appreciate this opportunity to come on here and talk to you, Stuart, and to your listeners about my campaign.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Hopefully we can continue with a round 2 after the primary here.
Oh, I would be so happy to do that.
Win or lose.
Yeah.
But hopefully win.
Either way, I'm going to be a thorn in the craw of the folks around here for a while. So we're going to win. So, I mean, put that in your calendar. August 4th is when the primary is. Put that in your calendar and vote for Jonny Meade for position 1 for LD20.
Right. Thanks so much for coming on, and have a good night.
Yeah, I really appreciate this opportunity, Stuart. Thank you, and you take care. Okay.
That was awesome, especially the cats. If you'd like to come on the show, whether you're a candidate or not, I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at PoliticOly@gmail.com. Next week, I've got an interview with Thurston County Commission candidate Carolina Mejia, so please comment below or send me an email if you've got a question for her. Thanks all for tuning in, for the likes, the comments, subscriptions, and for sharing my videos. I hope you are well, and see you next time.